What's good, gamers? Aquilon here, and of course, welcome back to each and every one of you. We interrupt our War Within coverage to talk about something that I think is very prudent as we're getting ready for the next expansion, as Blizzard is getting ready for most likely very heavily involving themselves in the writing of the story of the next expansion and making decisions on what the next expansion will ultimately look like from a war perspective. And I want to look, since we are now in 10.2, I've been spending the last 2 days basically playing the shit out of Guardians of the Dream. And I have to admit, I like it. I like the zone. I think it looks really, really good. I really actually like the outdoor activities. I think there's quite a large variety of different activities. Some of the world quests are actually quite interesting. Now, don't get me wrong, there's nothing groundbreaking about any of the outdoor activities, but it's not bad. I have had fun, and I particularly love the amount of small lore things, like books. I already have 3 books that I've collected in the Dream that is just mulling around in my head with a lot of speculation, and then we have Guanzu, which is driving me nuts. I basically spent the entire morning doing research on Guanzu and coming up with nothing, because there's almost nothing in the game about this character, which is driving me a little nuts. But I do have speculation theories on that. But no, I want to talk about something completely different today, and it really has to do with the direction of World of Warcraft, where we're going, and what we've done in the last expansion, but then also what are we going to do in the next expansion from a storytelling perspective. So this is not a speculation video, it's more just, what do I want to see in the next expansion? Now, Dragonflight, it's no secret, didn't launch with the greatest amount of hype. The cinematic didn't really get a lot of people's blood pumping, and the game itself didn't do much to ever really fix that. In Dragonflight, pretty much every single cinematic went for this very heavy, drawn-out, emotional thing that, it kind of hit for the people that were part of the story, but it was never going to bring someone that had quit the game back to the game, because they didn't know the story, they didn't understand what it was. And I've done plenty of videos talking about the problems with these cinematics. It's fine if you want to do something very, very emotional, but then the player has to be involved right up until the moment that the emotional thing takes place, which oftentimes Blizzard kind of fails off. So this is not going to be a video going into that again. I won't bore you, I promise. Well, maybe I will, but not intentionally. This is to do with conclusions, very specifically how Blizzard have seemingly, and I don't know if this was a choice from Blizzard or if it's a happy accident, but there's a pattern with the conclusions of stories in Dragonflight, which is problematic. Now, we're not talking about the conclusions of some of the larger quest lines. Razageth, for example, we put her down and we killed her, and while she still succeeded, we did obviously emerge from that victoriously. Sarkareth, we put him down, even though he was one of the most anticlimactic end bosses in the history of World of Warcraft, we did put him down, like the dog that he was. And, Aberys is still there, and there's still some very interesting stuff there. And I'm sure at the end of this, we're going to put Farak down as well. No, I'm not talking about the main storylines. I'm talking about the sidelines, the stories that happen alongside these main quests. They're problematic. The Dragonkin, Veronoth, the Infinite Dragons, the Sundered Flame, to name a few, have all ended in the power of friendship. And I hate to spoil this, but I think that's going to be the title of the video. Or it will almost definitely be in the thumbnail. It's going to be somewhere, but the power of friendship. That's how every single one of these stories ended. The Dragonkin, if you guys don't remember, there was a faction of the Dragonkin that thought the dragons were incredibly arrogant to have been gone for so very long, and the Dragonkin were left to basically run the entire place. And then the dragons come back and they think they can just immediately take over, and they can bark orders at the Dragonkin. More specifically, they can send the Dragonkin to their deaths. And you have this entire terrorist faction, effectively, that wants to overthrow the dragons, that is working sort of in the shadows to try and overthrow the dragons. And then you have Alexstrasza sending you out, and basically you do kill a bunch of them, but then also eventually it leads to peace. Eventually, after you've captured a bunch of them and killed a bunch of them, you interrogate a bunch of them, and Alexstrasza realize, oh, yeah, we made a mistake. But then the story also kind of concludes with, you know, a power of friendship moment where the dragon can come back, and they're like, okay, never mind, we're going to be friends now. Vero, same thing, right? She starts off hating the aspect, hating Alexstrasza for what was done to the children of the incarnate, and then power of friendship prevails. She joins the aspects. The Infinite Dragons. This is actually the one that probably peeved me the most, is how the Infinite Dragons have such a unique and secretive story. And they ultimately boiled the Infinite Dragons story down to, oh, they just misunderstood the way that time operates. But of course, don't look too deeply into this, because the Infinite Dragons aren't allowed to change the timelines. But the Bronze Dragons are perfectly within the right to change the timeline whenever they want, especially when it comes to Nosdormu turning into Murozond. There is absolutely nothing that will ever go wrong when they change that timeline, but the Infinite Dragons are not allowed to change the timeline. And now you have the Infinite Dragons actually willing to work with, like, the last line from Eternus was, I never considered that you didn't want to be Murozond. And it's like, what do you mean? You never get what? But I mean, other than the fact that he said it multiple times, that he kept fighting against it, like, what do you mean you never considered that? That is such a cringe line. And then you have the Sundered Flame, which is also pretty bad, because the Sundered Flame one really felt like deeply political messaging, especially the last conversation that happened between them was this sort of conversation of, you were wrong, you followed the wrong path, but I can forgive you as long as you realize that you have followed the wrong path, and that now you should be part of us. You know, it was a deeply ideological, political push. And I'm not saying that that's wrong. All games have politics within them. It just felt really on the nose. The point I'm trying to get at here is there's nothing wrong with power of friendship. There's nothing wrong with a story being of the power of friendship. But those stories tend to take a lot of skill. And they require a lot of tender and care. And it needs to be believable. It cannot be like Eternus' shift, where it's something as small as her seeing her sister die, but then a small little bronze dragon live, which is a cringe moment in and of itself. That cannot be the catalyst that changes the hearts of an infinite dragon. You need to think through those stories much, much deeper, and you need to find a compelling, slow change over time. It cannot be a single big moment, because that's the problem. If only one of these stories was a single big moment and the rest were sort of slow chipping away at the armor of your enemy, that would have been fine. The problem is all of these stories is an instant change. It's like boom, bam. Now I'm ready, right? I've seen the truth. I'm ready to join you. What you're dealing with, obviously, and what Blizzard is trying to do, and I fully appreciate that, taking risks is good. We spoke about this last night during the stream. Blizzard is trying to do more emotional depth in their stories. In the past, what would we have done? We would have slaughtered all the Dragonkin. We probably would have fought Vero, even though she would say, no, please, I'm trying to be friends. We would go like, nah, bitch, die. We would kill all the Infinite Dragons, and we would kill all the Sundered Flame. You know, Blizzard wants to go away from that, and they want to dive into more, like, deeply emotional stories that connect to the player base. But those take a lot more effort than what Blizzard seems to be willing to put into them. It really does feel like Blizzard, they have the story. They have the Eternal ones wanting, or the Infinite ones wanting to turn Nosdormu into Murozond. And they know that they want the Infinites to eventually join the Bronze Dragons and become part of the Bronze Flight and all follow Nosdormu. And then they go, right, what's the easiest, quickest way for us to get there? Like, how do we get there? And then that's the one that they follow. They just sort of very quickly boom 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 done. Okay, good stuff. No need to think about this any further. Now, that does not work, and I'm half afraid that that's exactly because if I'm reading the story of 10.2 correctly, the Druids of the Flame will probably be exactly the same thing. It's going to be exactly this storyline. The Druids of the Flame will realize that what they followed and what they believed was completely wrong, and Tyrande will make peace with them, and they will come back into the fold, even though ideologically there is almost no way that they can do it. I'm not saying that that is what will happen, but there are a lot of elements that's already been laid down for this to happen. Like Tyrande clearly saying, I am done talking. Now is the time to strike at the heart of these creatures that threatens the dream. But then you find all of these in-game books and in-game pieces of information that suggest that the Druids of the Flame have a very specific reason for why they're in the dream. And it's very much tied to what happened to them at Teldrassil. And then the belief that through flame, the living flame, they're not destroying nature, they are changing it and they're making it immortal. They are giving all Night Elves or all Druids of the Flame immortality through the living flame. That's their mindset. So you can already see that the groundwork is being laid for reconciliation of these two factions. Again, it's not that you can't do it, it's that Blizzard have not done it good thus far. If you're going to take the player on such an emotional journey, you need to spend a lot more effort. And this brings us into the War Within. And what is going to happen in the War Within? How is that story in the War Within going to play out in the real world, in the world of World of Warcraft? Are we going to continue seeing these together and the power of friendship storylines in World of Warcraft? Because if we are, that would be sad. I believe that these stories can work, but we need darkness back in World of Warcraft. We need dark and deep and deeply troubling storylines that you can contrast off of this. I think that's the other problem in Dragonflight, is that there's no real contrast. There's no real darkness in Dragonflight. Everything is so light and fluffy and almost presented in a Disney-esque villain kind of way. And then you put on top of that all the power of friendship stuff, and it's like, oh my goodness, this is just, it feels like being in My Little Pony universe. It doesn't, you need that contrast. So you need a deeply dark and almost concerning storyline. And then those moments of the power of friendship stand out so much more because it gives the player a breather. It makes the player go, oh, I thought we were going to go on another genocide here. Okay, this is actually not bad. Right, back to slaughtering everything. You need that in story. So I really hope I really hope that with Chris Metzen back, this is sort of what we will see in World of Warcraft moving forward. But you know what? I've wasted enough of your time. It's been 13 minutes, almost 14 minutes at this point. I'm sure you're sick and tired of me. I just wanted to get this off my chest because it's something that's been mulling around in my head, and I've been tweeting up a storm because I haven't had the ability to really get it out there. So thank you so much for watching. Hit the like button if you liked it. Subscribe over on Patreon if you want to keep the channel free from sponsorships. Your $1, make sure that I don't have to say yes to scumbags that want to sell you stuff that you do not need. I'm going to get out of your hair. Peace.